What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So, tournament season has arrived. I am on my way to Burley, Idaho for the, the Idaho Open, I think, the Storm Idaho Open. First tournament of the year for me. Unfortunately, when I went to register for my first PBA regional, which is actually in Grants Pass, Oregon, coming up in the next, I think, almost March, like the next 3 days, the end of March, beginning of April. The tournament was full, which shocked me because I registered for it actually a week later, this time last year, and there was plenty of slots. So I don't know, there must be a lot more people bowling regionals this season for some reason. So I frantically put myself on the waiting list. Unfortunately, there is 3 other people ahead of me on that same waiting list. So me getting a spot in that tournament is, well, there's a very small chance of it at this point. So after I found that out, I very frantically started looking for tournaments around the state or around the area that I live that I could go bowl. And the Storm Idaho Open is one of the only events going on here recently as far as an amateur event. You know, it'll be a good warm-up tournament for me. There's several divisions in this particular tournament. There's an open division, there's a 205 and under division. There's several different qualifying squads, and because it's not PBA competition, it's not just one and done. So it'll be the type of event where I can go to. I'm planning to do 3 different entries, maybe 4. And yeah, it'll just be good practice for me to get back into the swing of tournament season. It'll really let me know if there's anything in my game that I need to start focusing on before my next regional, which the next regional isn't until the middle of April. It's in Lebanon, Oregon. I'm already pre-registered for that. I made sure to get my registration in early because of what happened on Grants Pass. So yeah, I am just on my way out of town. I've got a 7.5-hour drive ahead of me over a mountain pass and got to go through Yellowstone Park to get to where I'm going. Well, part of Yellowstone Park, so it's a rather entertaining drive. It's going to be a short cut for you guys. It's going to be almost 8 hours for me. I'll see you guys once I get to Burley. Well, everybody, I made it to Burley. It was a long, kind of slow drive. Ran into some weather through Yellowstone Park area. West Yellowstone actually is the name of the town there out on the outside of the park. And coming down into Idaho, so it was slow going for a big chunk of time there, but we made it. You know, one of the things I like the most about going on these tournaments is obviously the food. And I always look for the little places that are kind of off the beaten path, out of the way. There's this place called Arctic Circle. They make one heck of an awesome shake. Now, I haven't eaten the food yet, but this is a blackberry shake, and they put actual blackberries on the top of it. It looks amazing. I just got to my Airbnb. I'm going to get inside and get everything unloaded, eat some food, and then I'm going to sleep because I've been driving for about 8 hours, 8.5 hours, and I'm exhausted. I'll see you guys in the morning. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, and today is the first squads for qualifying at 2:30 and I think at 5. I'm signed up for both, and then tomorrow I'm signed up for, I think, 2 more squads. The plan is to only bowl 3. If I don't make it in 3, there's no sense in continuing to try. At that point, it's best just to pack things up and head home early. Well, I lucked out. It snowed a little bit last night, but not terrible. So the roads are actually pretty good. It's about an hour before I need to get to the bowling alley and get my stuff inside and get checked in for the 2:30 squad. But before I get going, I wanted to show you guys what I brought with me. Now, if you guys watched the video I put out on my channel a couple weeks ago, it was like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, I put out a video about my arsenal that I usually take with me when I'm bowling tournaments. So I wanted to show you guys what my arsenal looks like. I did eliminate a few pieces before I left home, so here's what we got. All right, so in my benchmark bag, which is right over here on the end, I've got my brand new Swagger Bomb for my symmetric benchmark solid. And then on the very far end here on the right, I've got my asymmetric solid Big Bro Jacked. And in the middle, I've got a pretty strong asymmetric Pearl. That is the Incredible Hero. Those 3 balls more or less are going to be my benchmark balls. They're going to basically be the first balls out of my bag to tell me what I'm dealing with as far as an oil pattern. You know, I decided to leave the Joker at home and went in favor of the Swagger Bomb because the Swagger Bomb, surprisingly, is very versatile. You know, I wasn't expecting it to be so versatile after I looked at the stat sheet, but after I threw it for the first time, I was really impressed. You know, you can shine it up a little bit, or you can put some smoother surface on it and really square everything up. You can put some rougher grit on it, and it really likes to open up the lane. So that particular ball does very well playing deep, playing outside. It's very versatile. The Big Bro Jacked is my asymmetric solid. You have to have one of those. Very strong overall. That ball in the middle, the Incredible Hero, is kind of a good step in between those two. It's a pearl. It's got a pretty tacky cover on it though, so it's overall a very decent reaction to use on the fresh. Nice and smooth off the back. Now the bag in the middle there, I've got, whoops, looks like I forgot to take the tape off of my Geek. The last time I was throwing the Geek actually was when I was doing some video feedback on my release. So I had my positive axis point taped up to my pin so I could look at my ball rotation and everything. So we got that off because I can't have that on during official play, of course. But on the left-hand side, we've got the Geek over here. It's a pearl. I usually keep this pretty shiny because it likes friction, and it's overall actually a fairly strong symmetric pearl ball. But I use it as a transition ball when the lanes start to open up and I really need something that's going to get clean through the front and turn on the back with basically no doubt. The ball in the middle here is the Swagger Show Off. Now this ball is going to be an excellent follow-up to the Swagger Bomb Solid. Same core, different cover, surfaced pearl symmetric ball. It really is a great ball to have in my bag. It's going to be a kind of a good in-between. On the far end here, I've got my Black Pearl Treasure. It's been plugged once, but on the far right here, I've got my Black Pearl Treasure at 5,000 grit. I use this ball on transition as well. On the far end here, of course, I've got my spare ball. That's going to be a big deal this weekend. In the middle, I've got my Buzzer Beater. And then on the far end, I've got my Big Bro Big Guns, which is the only ball that I have in my entire arsenal with a short pin layout. And of course, who can forget, on the far end, I've got my urethane bag. Two different urethane balls, or actually I should rephrase that, two urethane balls laid out exactly the same way. The only difference is the surface on the ball. I have one at 1500 grit true cut, the other one at 3000 grit true cut. The reason why I've got them at different surfaces is because if we're going to be bowling on a pattern this weekend where urethane is in play, I'd like to stay in urethane as long as possible, of course. So I've got a surfaced urethane ball for on the fresh, which will let me probably play, 5 to 6, maybe even 7 boards. And then I've got the ball with the same layout with some smoother surface that I can go to once the one with surface is actually hooking too much. Overall, I feel really good about the equipment that I brought with me this weekend. Now I just have to worry about executing. The biggest thing for you guys to remember when you're going to be bowling tournaments like this is basically you are your own worst enemy, more or less. In qualifying, when there's no match play going on, you're going to be getting up there competing against yourself, what's in your head. And that's something that I've struggled with for many years since I started tournament bowling again, is trying to get out of my own head and just free things up and allow myself to do what I know how to do. Now, there's a lot of different strategies you can use to get out of your own head. Personally, what I do is I've gotten in the habit of taking a notebook or a notepad with me and writing things out. Thoughts that I have in my head about shots I'm throwing, whether or not it was a good shot, did I miss a little bit? That way it just gets it out of my brain and it frees everything up. When I bowled in Great Falls, what was it? I think 2 months ago now or whenever it was, and I made the cut there, I came up with that process and it really did help me a ton. And I am a firm believer that that's one of the biggest reasons why I made the cut in Great Falls. Remember that. If you guys are going to plan on competing in a tournament, you're bowling against yourself. Until you make the cut and go into match play, you're competing against yourself. You're your own worst enemy. All right, I'm going to get things loaded up in the car and head out to the bowling alley. I've got to stop at Wally World on the way to the bowling alley and get a few things. So I'm going to do that, and then I want to be to the bowling alley about 1 o'clock. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Well, guys, the first squad didn't go exactly according to plan. I beat the dead horse in game one, tried to start with solid reactive balls and urethane, and they just were not hooking on the back part of the lane. I'm not sure why, but yeah, after I switched out of those and went into something a little bit cleaner through the front, actually I went to my Incredible Hero, it worked out pretty good. I shot some pretty decent games in games 2, 3, and 4, and I was able to throw a lot of different balls and basically see what kind of look they were giving me. And I've got several balls now that I think are going to work pretty good going into the 5 o'clock squad, which is about to start here in the next 5 to 10 minutes. You know, the scores are pretty low. It is a 41 to 42 foot completely flat oil pattern. The back ends aren't exceptionally jumpy in the beginning. They're pretty lazy. The lane beds seem pretty soft, so I think throwing anything with too much surface is probably a bad idea, at least for me. We'll see how that game plan works out going into the 5 o'clock squad. Overall, in my division, which is the 205 and under, the cut is minus 2530, actually. So that's what I need to get to. Let's see if we can get it done. Well, guys, I am back at the house, the Airbnb, and the second squad, I mean, it went a little better than the first squad. For some reason, my shot execution in games 1 and 2 was absolutely terrible. I felt like I couldn't hit the same spot more than one time in a row, so it was pretty bad. Game 3, I finally figured out what my issue was. I was actually holding the ball just a little bit too high in my setup. It was causing my backswing to be a little bit too high, so I was tugging it a lot, and that's what was throwing everything off. So I lowered it in my setup, and all of a sudden I started throwing it pretty good. The only problem is I shot like a $130 something in game 1, and then I shot a $150 something in game 2. Game 3, I was on a pace for 220 if I would have struck out in the 10th frame. Ended up shooting 205. I was happy with the 205, don't get me wrong. My execution was great. I actually threw quite a few strikes in that game. And then going into game 4, I knew I wasn't going to have enough pin total to make the cut, so I basically used game 4 as an experimentation game. You know, the thing that's making this pattern play really tough is the lane beds in this particular bowling alley are pretty soft. So even though there's a lot of oil out there, you can't just necessarily grab the strongest, you know, solid ball you got, put surface on it, and, you know, play with it. That's what I tried in the first squad for the first game, and I shot 100 on the nose. I tried every strong ball I had. I tried my Swagger Bomb at 1,000 or 1,500 grit. It read too early and just basically was dead on the back part of the lane. And then I tried my Big Bro Jacked at 1,000 grit. It did exactly the same thing. I tried urethane. I only threw one of my urethane balls that I had at 1,500 grit. The other one I had at 3,000. I haven't tried that yet, but I did try urethane, and urethane was basically doing the same thing, hooking too early and just dead on the back. Once I got into something pearl and asymmetric, it was a lot better. I switched to my Incredible Hero in game 3 of the first squad and shot a much higher game. That was actually a 190 game. I think it was like a 192 or 193. And then I spent game 4 of the first squad basically figuring out which balls gave me a good look, which balls didn't give me a good look, trying to eliminate some of my arsenal. And I was able to do that quite effectively. I had a pretty good plan going into the second squad. It's just I didn't execute in those first 2 games. Once my execution was on, I had a pretty good look. The second squad, there was a lot more bowlers involved. Instead of 3 per pair, we actually went up to 4. Was it 4 or 5? I think it was 5 per pair, pretty much every single pair. So there was a lot more bowling going on. The pattern opened up quite a bit more. In game 4, there was quite a few bowlers standing pretty deep, you know, going out to about the 12th board, I believe, and
hooking it to the pocket. I was trying to stay as far outside as I possibly could. And my look was pretty decent in my opinion. You know, I did try to play that inside line in game 4, found it to be a little inconsistent for me. So anyways, overall, the shift or the squad went really good. I've got a game plan set for tomorrow. I'm going to try a few things a little bit different. One thing I really want to get a look at, because the lane beds are pretty soft, is I'm going to throw my buzzer beater with some surface. I want to see if that ball gives me a good look on the fresh. What I need is something that isn't going to hook so early that it's just DOA at the end of the pattern, but I also need something that doesn't flare a ton. And as far as the other equipment that I have with me, you know, the Swagger Show Off is drilled pretty strong. The Incredible Hero is drilled pretty strong. Pretty much all my other equipment has a pretty strong drilling on it, and the buzzer beater is the only ball that is a higher RG, lower differential, that's drilled about medium. So I think if I put some surface on that, it might allow me to straighten things up and play, you know, with some surface on that ball in the beginning, which I think is what's necessary. So we'll see what happens. My next squad is tomorrow at 8 a.m. And then I haven't decided if I'm going to bowl the 11 a.m. or not. There is a waiting list. Technically, I am signed up for the late squad tomorrow night at 8 p.m., but we'll see how things go in the morning. If it's not going well at the 8 a.m. squad, I might just call it and head home, because there's no sense in staying here longer than I need to. And I definitely don't feel like hanging out at the house all day long just to go bowl a really late squad and then leave early Sunday morning. So we'll see how the morning goes. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning.